This episode of the Multiamory podcast is brought to you by Quip, modern oral care delivered. For a free toothbrush head refill, go to tryquip.com/multiamory.
In my preschool, if you were like good during nap time 5 days out of the week, you got a gummy bear. And like, but during the week,
Just a single gummy bear?
Okay, well,
one?
I know it sounds ridiculous, but my memories as a child is feeling so accomplished when I got that freaking gummy bear.
If you're happy with the same old ways of dating,
If you enjoy sucking at communication,
and you have no desire to improve your romantic life, then our podcast might not be for you.
but if you want some out-of-the-box ideas to deepen your current relationships,
broaden your sexual horizons,
develop a better understanding of yourself,
or learn more about non-monogamy,
Then you've come to the right place. I'm Jase,
I'm Emily.
and I'm Dedeker.
and this is the Multiamory podcast.
Songs I know I did, forcing me to form myself to fit.
On this episode of the Multiamory podcast, we're talking about how to make your life feel more like a game. In other words, we're talking about gamification. It's been a hot thing recently. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but also just some other ideas that we've come up with about how to apply all the things we've learned about life from video games and board games and pen and paper games and applying those to our relationships in our real lives.
Yeah, but first, I wanted to address the elephant in the room, or rather the cricket in the room. Not really, just if anyone can hear the small cricket thing in the episode, it's outside my window.
Oh, so it's not actually in the room
And-
with you, it's outside?
I don't know. The thing is, there was a cricket in here earlier, but I set wigs on it.
I was gonna say.
I told Henry to go eat it, but I don't know that he did. He may have just played with it and then set it free.
Oh, maybe now it's protesting.
I see.
Something tells me it's still alive. It's also like the hottest day in Los Angeles ever to happen. Not really, but possibly. So I think this cricket is protesting and yelling outside the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So that's what's happening right now. Sorry. In
So on this
advance if
episode, our
everyone
guest
can hear
is a cricket.
yeah.
it. Yes.
Special guest cricket.
Uh-huh.
So to start this off, I just wanted to start with the question of what does gamification mean, or what does it mean to gamify something? And this is a concept that has become somewhat popular in recent years, probably over the past 5 to 10 years, but really just in the last few, it's kind of picked up a lot of popularity. And basically, it involves taking principles that make games feel rewarding or even addictive, and then applying them to things that you want to do in your real life.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I haven't heard of this before you brought it up today.
Really? That's surprising because
but it makes a lot of sense
for someone, because we all play games, and so I'm surprised
I know.
that it hasn't crossed your path yet, like this cricket has.
No, I know, but it makes a lot of sense, and apparently there was a big collection of research on gamification, and that showed that in a majority of studies, gamification found that it does have positive effects on individuals, but individual and contextual differences exist. So gamification can also improve an individual's ability to comprehend digital content and understand a certain area of study, such as music. That's really interesting.
Well, it brings to mind for me, I feel like once we actually start thinking about it, it's like you see it everywhere. It's not just in quote unquote educational software or whatever we may have played as kids. But
Right.
like Jase, you're playing that game that teaches you how to code.
I think it's called Grasshopper.
Yeah. That's the one. I was going to say
Cricket?
caterpillar or something.
Oh my god.
Grasshopper.
Yeah, grasshopper.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that what's interesting about gamification is that it's not just making things literally into games. It's like taking the principles of game design. So that game, cricket, gosh, Grasshopper, it teaches you, it's super basics of some JavaScript programming as a game, where it essentially sets up the here's a thing, here's the stuff you need to know. Now here's the puzzle. In other words, here's the thing you want your code to achieve. And then using this sort of simplified interface make a code that'll do that, right? So that's like literally making it into a game. And when we think about like the learning games we played as kids, like I had like, you know, Mario Teaches Typing, where it was like, you know, it's a me, Mario. And it's like you'd press the keys on the keyboard to learn touch typing. And
I just got Mavis Beacon. I had
Mavis too, yeah. But
what? You had Mario Teaches Typing?
yeah, man, it had a CG Mario head that came out at the beginning. It's like, it's a me, Mario. And that was like mind blowing.
Whoa.
Like I hadn't seen
And we're typing.
a CG Mario like that at the time. It was really cool.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, but I think what you're getting at is that it's not just turning a concept or something that you need to learn into a game, but it's like taking these principles. It makes me think of an app that I use a lot is called Stash, which is an investing app.
Yeah.
Where
That's a great example.
it's both for like investing in mutual funds or ETFs, or they also made a portion of it where you can invest for retirement and stuff like that. And so first of all, it's all like micro investing. So it's like if you want to invest $5, then you can, you know, or $10 or whatever. But the way that they've done it, like it's not the only investing app out there that does micro investing, but they have really gamified it in a very simple way where, for instance, it's like if you earn 100 points, you level up. But the way you earn points is like, if you fill out your profile, you get 5 points. If you share it with a friend, you get 10 points. If you invest in this particular mutual fund, then you get 5 points. And like, then you're going to level up to like the next level, which is like, you're an investing wizard or something like that. But I think it's things like that, where it's like, clearly it's not like, here's a game for you to play and learn about investing. It's like, this is about investing, but here's some little gamified elements just to motivate you to kind of keep going and get a little bit of that, like, I guess a little bit of dopamine when it's like, oh, I leveled up. I did all the things. I got all the points.
You remember Foursquare a few years ago? It was like all the rage.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and that was like a gamified way of getting you to go somewhere and spend some money
That's
on something.
true.
And like check in
Get
here.
those badges and stuff.
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
You were the what, like prince or pauper of someplace? What was it?
Oh, were you the king? If you're the king.
Was it the king or the
king?
the duke and duchess, or it was some?
You got that little crown thing on your profile.
You got a little title.
Yeah, you got a little crown.
I feel like this is going to age us in a couple of years when people listen to us. I'm like, oh, geez, these people on Foursquare.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be like Foursquare. What's that?
Well, that's actually great that you bring that up, Emily, because Foursquare is one of the examples that's often cited in people talking about gamification. In terms of how gamification can be used as a way to market something.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good example. It's also, we see it all over the place in things like, for example, on Google Maps. If you contribute ratings or reviews or upload pictures about locations, you earn points and you level up. Same principle, right? Where you're like, oh, cool. I don't know if I feel like writing a review. Oh, but I'm only 10 points away from leveling. Maybe I'll do that, right? Or there's so many websites now that you sign up for. I think even Facebook does this. It's been a long time since I first signed up for Facebook. They give you like a
progress bar.
The progress bar.
Yeah, classic.
Right? It's like you're 60% of the way to setting up your profile and you're like, okay, I wouldn't do this, but I want to get that progress bar done, right? Yeah. So it's using principles from game design.
I read about a certain experiment where they used a progress bar to get kids to not pee in a pool. Where it was like, okay, so like they set up essentially like the porta potty next to the pool, and like anytime somebody used it, like a progress bar would go up. And so all the kids that day were kind of like, oh, we got to like go pee in the like actually in the bathroom so that we can raise the bar instead of peeing in the pool, and like it totally worked.
Fascinating.
Right?
That's ridiculous.
I know.
And cute.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
they need to use it more often, because I just also read a study that says that like 99.9% of people do pee in pools. So,
gosh, yeah.
On that note,
yes. So there's psychology behind this gamification idea, and one of the big things about making things into games that's so compelling is that games are really addictive. Like, God, the DLC for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Just, going back over and over again to those master trials, even when I frickin' screwed it up for the 20th time. But, I really needed to beat it for no good reason. Like, I wasn't going to get anything out of it except for the glory of having beaten it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it felt really good.
Well, there's a lot of things. I feel like there's a lot of things that go into making games themselves addictive. You know, it could be that you are really intrigued by the story. And so when some DLC comes out, you're like, I want more of this story. Or it could be that like you're collecting something or things like that. But I think that is also part of it, just like accomplishing things, whether it's something big like the Master Trials or just like unlocking a new recipe or whatever, that it is that little like that repetitive sense of like, I've checked off the to-dos, I've checked off the side quests, like I've accomplished something and that feels good, even if it's like within the context of a game where I haven't actually accomplished anything in the real world.
Unlocking a new recipe in Overcooked, is that what you're referring to?
Oh gosh,
No,
I mean,
I was thinking any number
game.
of like RPGs that have like a cooking system or whatever.
Yeah. Zelda does too, but yes.
Exactly.
yeah, totally. So, basically, I have two stories about this. One is a story that I read about in a book called Everything Bad is Good for You. And a really interesting book. I recommend it. It's maybe a little bit dated now because it came out maybe 10 years ago or so. But in it, he tells this story of a man who in World of Warcraft, which is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, there's this guy who is one of the top blacksmiths in the world in that game, or at least was at the time of this writing. And he, makes some of the best items in the game, is like very well renowned in the game, makes a lot of money in the game, all of these things. And to get to that point, he broke down the numbers, and I don't remember what they were now, but he had to spend some just astronomical number of hours doing very mundane tasks. Like in the game, mining some rocks to get some materials to then go to another place to forge those into items. Yeah. And this very, very slow process of doing this. And he made the comparison of like, that sounds a lot like work. And then he looked at this guy also had a full-time job. And so this guy would go do his full-time job, which was in construction, I think, and then would come home and spend the same amount of time in this game,
just forging stuff,
doing another
like
kind of construction in a way, and sort of asking the question of why. Because people say all the time, the criticism of games is it's like, oh, you're not, you're just goofing around, you're just having fun, you're not being serious. And for anyone who's played any amount of games are not fun a lot of the time. That's like the weird irony about
especially
games.
Like long RPGs.
Yes, that it's not about just having fun all the time. I think that's a common misconception from people who don't play video games specifically. And then the other story is actually about one of the guys who today is one of the big proponents of gamification, and he has a lot of information out there, tons of YouTube videos and stuff. He told a very similar story, except his was with a different game. I think it might have been EverQuest. But same thing, he spent tons of hours developing this whole thing in that game, and then one day he just stopped playing the game, and he had this realization of, I've put so much energy and so much time and so much like thought and willpower and effort into accomplishing things that as soon as I stop playing that game are gone. And saying, man, if I had applied that much effort and time to stuff that was in real life that would stick around, or that would at least be more likely to stick around, that like, how far would I be? And so he said, I'm going to take that and make that work for me. I'm going to get into gamification and
that
learn.
Same thing that compelled me to put in all that time. I see.
Exactly. I'm going to use that so that I can accomplish more in my own life.
Well, speaking of that, okay, because I feel like, I would love to sit here and just talk about video games, but
Yes.
like, how does this work in our real lives? How does this work in our relationships? How could it? Like, what are the ways that games have influenced us in our real lives outside of just gamification of things?
Well, so one way actually is comes from pen and paper role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. There's also the Fate system or Monster of the Week, which we'll talk about a little bit in this section. I'll talk about it when we get to it. But so Dungeons and Dragons, for, I think everyone is at least somewhat familiar with what that is, but essentially imagine it's like a board game, but where you're kind of making up the board game as you go along. And there's some sort of core rules about how your characters work and how things are resolved in the world, like whether or not you can do something, but you're kind of telling a story collaboratively as you're playing this game. Maybe that's a way to think about it. rather than a board game with a very linear, like you get this many pieces or this much and then it's done, right? And so in it, your character has ability scores. And if you've played any role-playing games, like Emily, I know you've played, have you played Fallout as well, or just Skyrim?
Just Skyrim.
Okay.
And like Secret of Mana, which was kind of an RPG.
Yeah, that had this kind of thing too. There's, a ton of other games that have a similar system, but where you have ability scores. And just to use the ones from Dungeons and Dragons right now, although this could work with other systems, you have 6 of them. There's strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And essentially your character has a different number in each of those that determines how good they are at that thing, right? So if, say, they have a high charisma score, means they're very good at convincing people of things, they're good at being a leader, they're good at encouraging other people or manipulating other people, right? It can have different uses. Or like intelligence would be how good they are at book learning, so wizards would need this one. Or wisdom is more about how they are with cultural knowledge or being perceptive of things, noticing when something's out of place. Dexterity is how good you are at balancing or dodging things. Strength is obviously strength. And constitution is sort of how hardy you are. Constitution's a little bit of an abstract concept.
Yeah.
But first of all, Dedeker and I have started using some of these to talk about our real life selves as if we were characters in games, kind of to give ourselves a sort of more playful way to understand a little bit about each other as well as ourselves.
Yeah, this has been interesting because I think that people don't, obviously in the real world, don't live in this world where like all of your skills and abilities are just like a set of numbers that you're like rolling a die and there's like all this chance. But it is an interesting framework to apply to start thinking about things. And like I didn't start thinking about it until Jase one day made the comment, like, it's like, Dedeker, I think you have very low constitution. And
oh God, you said this a couple times during the tour.
Yes, he's now spread this knowledge to Emily. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I mean, I know what it means in like a gaming sense, but I don't know how that actually means in my life. But like from Jase, it's more specifically about the fact that like I have very low constitution when it comes to like walking across town, for instance. I'm more of a sprinter than like a distance runner, really, or like dealing with heat or adversity of that kind of like.
Oh yeah, you almost died in the heat when we were in New York.
No, that
walking a long way.
Right.
Oh
yes.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I also failed my constitution throws at the San Francisco show. Like,
yeah. Well, so I want to give a little bit of context about what that means.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless you want to explain.
No,
it.
go ahead.
Okay, so essentially the way these numbers work is, you'll have some of them that are higher and some that are lower, and usually they'll be based around what type of character you are. Like I said, if you're a wizard, you'd want a higher intelligence, but you probably don't need as much strength, right? Or like a thief would need higher dexterity, but wouldn't need as much intelligence, maybe, right? There's different ways you could play it. But the way these work is that when something challenges you, for example, like say you get hit with a poison dart, that would be something that challenges your constitution. And based on your score, it essentially just increases or decreases the likelihood that you will successfully resist that thing, right?
This has all of a sudden just become a D&D podcast.
Yeah, like now it's just the way that podcasts go.
But hold on, here's why this is important. Because these numbers are not saying, they're not a yes or no. It's not like a yes, I am good at this, so I'm always going to succeed at this, right? And it's not a, oh, I'm bad at this, so I'm always going to fail at this. Instead, it's just about, okay, my chances of succeeding in something on strength are better than my chances on something for wisdom, because those are the scores that I have. It doesn't mean I can't have an epic win about wisdom or an epic failure when it comes to something with strength. And so to put it in context of what Dedeker was talking about, of having that low constitution score, it doesn't mean that like anytime it's hot out, she just instantly wilts. But the
chances are likely.
But if she feels herself getting to that point of, oh goodness, I'm wilting, then, we have this sort of funny, silly way of commenting on it of like, oh, I think I just failed a saving throw against Constitution, right?
But I think that's an interesting look at it, though, of this idea that, you're not limited to just the things that you think that you're good at or bad at, that there is still a chance with anything that you're able to break out. And that even if you think that you're good at something, you can still fail at it. And even if you think you're not so good at something, you could still greatly succeed at it, which I think is just another interesting kind of philosophical stance to take on it.
Mm-hmm. And can you change those scores? Is that a thing that can happen?
Yeah, definitely.
When you level up.
Well, and that's the thing is, so you level up and you can increase those ability scores, but they change very slowly over time. And I think that's also, if we just want to keep on going with this metaphor. Yeah, exactly.
I like life.
Right, that you can change them, but it takes sort of a continued dedication toward changing those things in order to change them.
I don't know how I would change my constitution with temperature, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
I'd have to do like some training.
Yourself,
I'd have to condition myself.
Yeah, just live in like the desert for 18 years like I did. Then you'll be good. Yeah. Although, geez, I really am doing poorly right now in this heat.
Comparatively.
I've got my ice pack going on. I've got, it's awful. So I hear you, Dedeker. I hear you.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know. I guess it is kind of this interesting framework of like applying this like structured way of thinking about one's own life, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And I think the point of it is just, in this case, is just to kind of have some fun and give yourself a shorthand. And it's actually, I found it's helped me to remember that, so that if I realize that it's hot outside and I start to feel it, going, oh man, Dedeker might be feeling this even more than I am. So I'm going to preemptively make sure we get out of that. Potions. Or I'm not going to be like, hey, let's walk over to this other place that's a few miles away because I'm feeling fine, right? But it helps me be more aware of that. Recently, Dedeker's been concerned about my dexterity score because I was tripping a lot the other day.
Yeah, I did bring that up.
Oh.
But sorry, what were you going to say, Emily?
No. Please continue. I was going to move on, but go for it.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that I do want to be sure that we're not thinking about these things in terms of like, oh, I have this limitation, and so I'm always going to be limited in this way. But I think instead thinking about it as this is a thing that I could devote time to changing, or like in a role-playing game, I could find some magic items or other ways to enhance this.
How far does this metaphor go?
I'm taking it so far. I'm taking it all the way.
Really, really far. Well, okay, so you quickly talked about something called the Fate system and Monster of the Week. Can you touch on those? Like, what is that? I've never heard of this.
Right.
Maybe I have, but I can't recall this.
Yeah, so real quick, basically Fate and Monster of the Week are just different systems. Kind of like I said, Dungeons and Dragons is sort of the system that you kind of make up a game that you play together using that system, essentially. So the Fate system is just a different one that takes a very different approach to things. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because in that one, you're sort of telling a story together. And so in that, when you're trying to do something difficult, say, kind of like, say you're trying to lift something heavy. In that game, if you're able to explain it in terms of the story of why you should be more able to do that thing than you would be, then you can actually make it so that it's easier for you to succeed at that, right? So there's like creative thinking about how to realistically solve a problem rather than just being like, oh, you either have the strength or you don't, which I think is something in video games we get where it's like,
definitely.
I don't have that strength, so I just can't open that door. I can't go in that room. Or like my lockpicking skill is not high enough, so I will never be able to see in that door. That instead, this is like, can you explain away? Can you find a person to help you? Can you... right? Like, can you make a good story for why you should be able to do it? And then it'll make it more likely that you can do it.
I see.
And then also as another approach to it in the game Monster of the Week, which is yet another system for a same sort of thing, they do a really interesting method of character advancement where in terms of, like we said, you can level up and increase your abilities and skills and things like that, that the way that you level up is by failing at stuff. And that if you're just succeeding all the time, you're not essentially developing as a person. But when you have those failures at things, then your character will get more abilities or will get stronger. And so I just really find that one interesting because in reading about it, people will say you'll get some players who play the game whose characters barely advance at all because they're always so afraid of failing that they'll play it very safe all the time. And then you'll have others who are just always trying for the epic win, and sometimes they get them, and a lot of times they don't. But those characters end up developing much more.
Because they get the experience points.
Right, because they're willing to take those risks and tell a more interesting story, even if it doesn't work out as well for them. So anyway, I just wanted to bring up that Dungeons and Dragons has gotten some criticism for certain aspects of it, and I just want to point out there are other systems, and the metaphor still works. So
That's cool.
I like that though. I like that, you know, still being rewarded with experience points even when you fail. Or at least that's the only way that you get experience points is through failing.
Again, it's a metaphor for life.
I like it.
I love it.
It is. So, okay, can we talk a little bit about gamification and kind of how it can be applied to relationships?
Yeah.
So, again, gamification is this idea that you can apply scenarios in games or like the structure of a game to your real life, day-to-day, I don't know, tasks or anything that you want to do. So, okay, apparently, like, this is used for things like productivity or for like companies or to market products.
Yeah, like we talked about with
or to
Foursquare.
get like to get their users to do work for free. So again, I mean, I'm assuming like Foursquare had like a deal going on with the places that you checked in at. I don't know.
Well, no, a good example is like Google Translation right now. You can go into like, you do the like quote unquote help them translate, and they've really gamified this process where,
yeah.
And I mean, I've fallen for it for sure, where they like show you little phrases in like one language, and then they give you like 4 options of like, which ones actually match this translation. It could be multiple ones. And it's, again, the same thing where there's a progress bar and there's level ups and there's badges, but it is just doing work for them for free of just kind of like testing their translation quality.
Oh my God. My mom, like, I got her an Apple Watch and she is like gaga for the whole exercise wheel thing.
A lot of people.
She has to.
A lot of people.
Every single day get all 3 bars and like beat it by like 200%. She's like, I didn't do my 200% yet today. I have to finish it. And I'm like, Mom, chill. So God, talk about gamifying. But like she's doing an amazing benefit from that.
They also add in elements. I know Fitbit, and I'm sure Apple Watch too, adds in elements of competitiveness as well.
Yes, you get badges and shit.
Exactly.
It's cool.
You can compare with your friends, like see their scores each day.
Oh, she totally does that. She's like, I got my like badge for this month because like I beat my record again. I'm like, wow, okay. Must be nice to be retired. But then, so apparently, like, this has been used, like we said, for a long time in education for children. Because obviously, you want to, like, make everything learning into a game, or a lot of, like, fun shit into a game for kids. So, I mean, the learning games we have today, it kind of correlate to what we did as a kid. Like, you might learn, like, you might get a sticker for something.
Do you guys have that in your kindergarten?
What, getting stickers? Heck yes.
Oh, yeah. Right? Heck yes.
It's like so ubiquitous.
Like when you're a kid, you get a sticker.
Yeah.
But that's a great example of gamification.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, totally. Like you do an assignment or a chore and you get a sticker.
You get a sticker, you get a stamp. In my preschool, if you were like good during nap time 5 days out of the week, you got a gummy bear. And like, but during the week,
just a single gummy bear?
Okay, well,
one?
I know it sounds ridiculous, but my memories as a child is feeling so accomplished when I got that freaking gummy bear.
Wow.
Yeah, everyone had like a paper bear with their name on it on the board. And like you'd get like a sticker on kind of like the 4 paws each day. And then the last day you would get the bear with the gummy. And the gummy bear was taped to the bear.
Oh, so you saw it.
You saw it. And for a 4-year-old, that's very compelling.
They just bought like a Costco pack of gummy bears and they're like, whatever, this shit'll last the entire year. We're just giving one to one kid like every week.
It worked because again, like if you're on your 3rd day or your 4th day, you really wanted to be squirmy during nap time, but you're like, oh, but I can see that gummy bear with my name on it. Like it totally worked.
I think this builds into our competitive nature as humans. Like, maybe we're even just being competitive with ourselves, but we still like, we must like win. We must beat something. We must cross the finish line. We must get that gummy bear.
Okay, again, here's the question. How do we apply getting that gummy bear in your relationships?
Well, okay. So the way that gamification apps tend to work, like the modern apps out there, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about this later, but is it finds ways to tie rewards to things that you want to do that you might not do otherwise, right? So like the gummy bear thing, there's one app where you can, you write your own rewards for things, and it might be like, I get to watch the next episode of Game of Thrones once I've done this thing that I want to be sure I do. Like whether it's, working out or getting my writing done or I don't know what, cleaning the house, right? Yeah. It tends to be about those sorts of things. Or other games, it's more about a progress bar, right? Leveling up, getting points or unlocking little digital items, right? Again, all stuff that's sort of meaningless, but it's getting you to do a thing that you might not have done otherwise. Like, again, the Foursquare example is a good one too, of like, those points don't mean anything. You don't get anything from that. It's just for the fun of getting points. So we wanted to ask that question of like, how can you take that same sort of thing and instead of applying it to something super tangible, like working out or cleaning the house or doing work, how can you apply that to your relationships?
Yeah, and I think this is important to talk about like the goal-making process in a relationship, which I think the relationship escalator tends to maybe potentially have that like mentality of goal setting and then like, okay, I'm setting this goal of moving in and I'm setting this goal of getting married. And like, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not about, I mean, as probably all of you know who have listened to this podcast, that's not really like our MO, going on the relationship escalator and setting those goals, but rather like these are personal development goals, like relationship development goals, not just like my goal is to get married to you.
Not like relationship milestone goals.
Right.
Exactly.
I wonder if that's why the relationship escalator is so addictive, because it is like a game.
It's like I've gotten to the next one.
My progress bar is going toward that next level, which is that next step. Geez, I never even thought about that.
Well, there's a reason why there's the board game of life, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
It's quite escalatory.
That's a board game.
Yeah, that's super
that's not just a relationship, but that's whole life escalator. Like, go to college, get a job, get a car, get a wife, get some kids, get a house.
Right. You'll notice in the game of life, there's not a go back to college, change careers.
No, that's true. Get a divorce.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, man.
Get rid of one of your kids, buy another one.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Jeez.
So before we get into more of this, I would like to take a quick break to discuss ways that you can support our show. And the best way to do that is through Patreon, which is an amazing, amazing community of people that have built up around our show. If you go to patreon.com/multiamory, you can donate to our show. At the $5 level, which is the most popular level, you will become a part of our private patron-only Facebook group, which is an amazing way to meet a bunch of like-minded people that are interested in polyamory, interested in doing it better, interested in making their relationships suck less. And they really come together and help each other out in a variety of ways, just by like posting their stories of triumph or, things that they need help on and then getting advice on it. And it's a really amazing way for people to come together. In addition, if you donate at the $7 level, you get bonus content, ad-free episodes, and then those episodes come out a day early. Also, we have our video discussion group at the $9 and up level. So again, like that's with us face-to-face, and then other $9 and up patrons, and you can actually like talk about things that are going on in your life, and it's a really amazing community of people in there.
Those are always really cool.
To discuss, that get to discuss things via video chat. So again, if you want to support our show and become a part of an amazing group of people, then go to patreon.com/multiamory and join today.
Okay. Another thing that you can do that would really help us out a lot is just to take 2 minutes out of your day, if you haven't done it already, and leave us a review. If you go to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever it is you get your podcast, that will let you leave a review. Just go ahead, sign in. We read every single review that we get. and we cry about them often. And so
happy tears,
lots of happy tears about the reviews that we get. But it's not just for us. It doesn't just, help us know what we're doing right or what we're doing wrong. It helps other people who are looking for podcasts, with this kind of content to know whether it's worth their time to listen or not. So take a minute, let people know what you liked about the show, what you got out of it, if there's any particular episodes that you would recommend to people for them to start with. Or even if you don't have the 2 minutes to write a whole review, you can just leave us a rating. Just click on some stars and leave us a rating, and that helps us too. So again, go to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, and leave us a rating or review.
And then lastly, our sponsor for this episode is Quip. Quip is a fun way to get an awesome toothbrush. That's an electric toothbrush, feels great in your mouth. It's been developed along with dentists to actually be the best possible toothbrush and toothpaste for getting the cleanest, healthiest mouth. And we all love them. They come in cute colors. They travel really nicely, unlike that, big, blocky, heavy Sonicare or other things like that. Super great for traveling. Dedeker and I use ours all the time. Mm-hmm. Also, I wanted to let everyone know that my dad just ordered a Quip using our code.
Congratulations to your dad.
So he's about...
So did my boyfriend.
Okay. Look, everyone's doing it.
We now have a gold and a pink Quip
nice.
on... Yes, hanging. I need to take a picture of it and put it on the Instagram.
Yeah, my mom has a Quip now too. Everyone's on the Quip train.
Everyone.
Yeah. So anyway, please become more like a member of our families and get a Quip as well by going to tryquip.com/multiamory. If you go there, not only will they contribute to our show to help keep this going, but you will also get one free refill. You get $10 off your first refill, which is a free refill, which is the head of the toothbrush, as well as some toothpaste that they'll send you 3 months later. Which is awesome. I like doing that subscription as well to make sure that I actually, replace my toothbrush heads as often as I'm supposed to. Yeah. We recommend it.
So obviously this whole podcast is really about different ways in which to do personal development, which to better yourself at a personal level, because it is really central to having a good relationship. So I think these game techniques and these tactics, it's something that you could, for instance, incorporate into your radar session.
Yeah.
When you're figuring out your action points with a partner. Yeah. Say okay, if we do, if we halt during an argument every single time this month, then we should take a day trip to Santa Barbara for wine tasting.
That's interesting.
For instance.
Yeah. I actually kind of like that. If you're let's halt 10 times this month. So just to get
Whoa, that's a lot of halt.
Well, maybe it's a lot. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you need it, but just to encourage you to use it rather than not. That's interesting.
Yeah. Or, even just the reconnection time at the end of Radar is in itself sort of a reward for
I was just saying, if we ever made a Radar app, we definitely need to build a progress bar into it.
Yeah.
To kind of get you, because I do think that with the Radar kind of restructuring where it was all those different categories that you hit, definitely whenever I do a Radar, it feels that way a little bit of okay, we check off this box, then we check off that box, then we check off this box. Wow, look at us truck along,
right.
And then we get to the end where we get to reconnect or massage each other or have sex or watch a movie or do something good that it gets you through what could be a potentially uncomfortable or difficult or tiring couple hours of communication.
Yeah.
Yes,
we need to gamify making an app for Radar, because that's a really good idea.
Get really meta with it.
Yeah, I love it.
But we need to incentivize it somehow.
Well, if y'all have any specific ideas of what a Radar app could look like or what you'd want in that kind of app, then reach out, send us an email, tweet at us, Facebook us, make a post in the Patreon group if you're part of that. Okay, so some things that came to mind when I was thinking about what are maybe some things you would want to accomplish that would take multiple steps and that might be hard to get yourself to do in some, or motivate yourself to do in some way. And there's so many options. It could be things like being more okay with being alone rather than with a partner all the time. And this could be regardless of your relationship structure. Maybe you're monogamous and just want to be able to have more of a life separate from your partner, or if you're opening up your relationship and you're adjusting to having more time alone or by yourself if a partner's away. So things like that. It could be having an aim of creating better communication or a better relationship with your metamors, or creating a relationship there at all, or a connection there at all. It could be the way that you maintain communication in a long distance relationship. It could be about being more social or encouraging yourself to, like, you know, have the courage to ask someone on a date. You could gamify de-escalating a relationship. And that sounds really weird to be like bringing games into this traditionally very sad and difficult process. But I'm kind of thinking more of like, you know, gamifying the process of when it's like, okay, we need to have some time apart, or like maybe this person's kind of toxic, or I need them not in my life anymore. And like, if there's a way to gamify not reaching out to that person, essentially to kind of keep yourself.
Get a cookie.
Well, maybe something more than a cookie, although I don't know if a cookie really motivates you. Maybe that would work.
Well, what about the progress bar?
Hey, your one gummy bear motivated you, Dedeker.
That's true.
But I mean, what about the progress bar idea
true.
of, rather than it being about a specific reward, it could be this like, I want to have 10 days where I'm not checking their Facebook, right? I'm not looking at my ex's Facebook, or I'm not asking someone how they're doing, or something like that, right? And that you have those sort of check marks that you fill off, and if you fail, you start over, like try it again. You know, that could work to have that, like, I'm going to level up, and after that 10 days, I'm going to do another 10 days, or right?
Yeah.
And that you level up each time.
Yeah. So so those are just some general ideas of maybe something that's like a little bit difficult to accomplish, maybe seems a little bit daunting, but that I think could be gamified in some kind of way, could be broken up into small tasks, could have like rewards built in, could have some way of gamifying it. And so as far as figuring out, you know, what it is that you want to do, and then being able to translate that into something that'll actually get you to do it, generally, we encourage you to focus on like, what are your normal productivity based things, or like to-do lists, and then add items that are like that. So like, if you already have something that is like, I meditate every day, or I work out every day. Something that also works really well is to attach new habits to old habits. So for instance, like something that I started doing is like, well, I already have the habit of meditating every single day. And like, I have a tracker on my phone that tracks how many days in a row I've meditated. And so
you've already gamified that.
I've already gamified that. And I'm like, I'm going to attach like a quick workout to that, so that now also I meditate, and then I do like a 10-minute workout after that. And that then I'm kind of tracking both of those at the same time. And kind of trying to gamify it in that way. And so another thing that you can do is, you know, adding things, again, that are not necessarily just like based on your partner, but they're also like, I guess, more personal development based things. So for instance, a few, months ago, but I guess it was last year, technically, we had Jessica Graham on the show. And she talked about, you know, standing in front of a mirror and like saying loving things to yourself, and as a way to like boost self-esteem and to kind of be more positive with yourself, and also examining like if you really have a negative reaction to even the thought of that, that's something to examine as well. But doing things like, I used to have an app that would kind of pop up a reminder on my phone every single day, like something positive to say to myself. And then once you got through like a 30 days of it, once you got through 30 days of it, then you could, I forget what it unlocked for you. Like it was also very gamified, and like you kind of like leveled up, and then you could kind of switch the thing that it would say to you. But you had to get through that first 30 days first. And it's like, that's not even that big of a reward, but it was motivating enough for me to be like, okay, I'll actually do this, and like kind of say these positive things to myself and things like that.
Yeah, wow. And I just want to point out, too, that a to-do list itself is already like a gamification, because it gives you this sense of progress, right? Especially if you're using a to-do list effectively, which I have not always done, and only recently have started finding a more effective way, using the bullet journal technique that Dedeker talked to me about. If you look it up online, you can find out lots more about it. But essentially, each day, your to-do list is only stuff that you could actually do that day, right? So you don't end up with this to-do list that just is your to-do list forever. That instead, each day kind of has its own list that's achievable. And so there is this thing I've definitely had where, you know, I kind of get to the end of my sort of working day of working on stuff, and I see, crap, there's like one more thing on that list for today, but there's just that one. It would just be better. I'll just do it right now. And I'll take that moment and I'll do it and just get it done, instead of, like that progress bar on
Right,
Facebook,
right.
instead of leaving that not quite finished, be like, yeah, sure, it won't take me that long. I'll just finish it. And so essentially taking that idea of even a to-do list and putting some more personal development stuff on it, kind of like that, the note of appreciation that you mentioned, Dedeker, that's a really great one to put on there, or some kind of self-love, like actually put it on your to-do list for the day. So that, maybe you're starting to finish your workday and you see, oh, that's still the one thing I haven't checked off. All right. I'll take a moment to do it. And then you do it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did that. Like I felt so much better, but it kind of helps you actually take the initiative to do the thing.
Right.
Yeah. So what are some other things that you can do?
You could taking a walk around the block, drinking a glass of water, right? They could be sort of health related things, or what else? What could be some other kind of more relationship development things? Like we talked about your relationship with your metamors. It could be something of like, I'm going to send a message and just check in on how this metamor is doing, assuming I have that kind of relationship with them, right? Or just
Drinking a glass of water is a good one. I don't do that as often as I should, especially in this heat.
It's not quite as related to other people. I've done ones in the past where I've headed to, let's say, like a polyamory meetup or discussion group, and I've been like, I'm going to talk to 3 people that I don't know.
Oh,
and
yeah.
just with that intention, not with the intention of I'm going to ask 3 people out, or I'm going to find 3 attractive people, or I'm going to make 3 friends. Even that's a little too much pressure. It's just, I'm going to talk to 3 people I don't know. Even if it's just like, hey, your earrings are really cool. Bye.
Gives 3 people a compliment. That's doing something outside of yourself.
Yeah, but again, just in the sense of helping to prevent me from just getting into my own little world, or just being a wallflower, just staying with the people that I know at a meetup. And often it just leads to great conversations, or maybe it does lead to me meeting someone I'm attracted to or interested in, or not, or just someone who's just cool, or I'm in a better mood, or whatever, things like that.
Yeah, and it's important to realize with that part of it is it's something that you yourself can accomplish. So if your goal is for my metamor to like me, that's a harder thing, right? Because that's not actually something that you can control. And while that might be nice to want, the point of this is to think of things that are very tangible that you can actually accomplish and do, right? Like complimenting yourself, sending someone a nice message, doing things like that. And the double bonus of these types of things, as opposed to the normal to-do list items, is that they have this double win property, where not only do I get the positive thing of taking that walk, or of giving myself these compliments, or sending a nice message, but I also get another thing I can check off my checklist much easier than probably a lot of other stuff, right? If it's clean out my whole inbox, that might take a few hours, but giving myself a compliment might only take a minute, but I get check mark on my to-do list, and that feels good.
And I feel just one note before we move on here is I feel like having an awareness of this can really change the way that you set up action points in your radars in your relationships.
Interesting.
I know everyone talks about, having actionable goals and stuff like that. But I think it's really the difference between, okay, this month, let's try to have more date time versus let's have 3 dates. Let's set it. We're going to have 3 dates this month that are outside the house that we kind of plan and get dressed up for. We're going to do 3 of them. And whether it is in your radar at that moment, okay, let's pick the dates for it. Or if it is just okay, we have this goal, we have this quest that we got to get 3 days, and we're at 0 out of 3 right now. So let's accomplish that. And again, it's a tiny little silly thing. Of course, if you end up doing 4 dates, it's not going to be a problem, or, but just again, I think it can really shape the way that you make your action points with your partner to actually get things that are accomplishable, and also to motivate both of you to have a sense of we're on this team trying to accomplish this quest together.
And I think part of the gamification principle there would be to be sure it's visible to you how you're doing toward it.
Yeah.
Because I know that something Dedeker and I have fallen into before is we'll set an action point in our radar, and then it stays in that document that doesn't get opened until the next month. And then we look at it, we're like, oh, whoops, we totally didn't do that thing. And so with that, maybe it's putting gold stickers on a piece of paper on the fridge, or drawing some hearts on something, or putting, maybe you have 3 like silk roses that you like fill a vase with.
You are so corny.
I am, right? It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
The point is that it's
What the hell is a silk rose?
like an artificial
like a silk
rose
flower.
Yeah, like a
Wait, that you fill in? What?
no. It's like a fake flower that you would put in a vase
Okay.
that looks like a
You're
flower.
saying
Oh,
behind
I see. So you just like gently take a silk fake rose and put each individual one in a vase. Okay.
I don't know why you added the gently.
I'm like, because it's silk, because it's like.
Oh, I want to toss out
needs to be
a controversial thing and
Okay,
see what y'all
okay,
think about it.
yeah.
Because I saw this on, I think, on the polyamory subreddit once.
Okay.
And it had a lot of comments and a lot of people kind of back and forth. I'm still not sure how I think about it. And what this person had done is, so this person had 2 partners.
Okay.
And they, whenever they like spent time with a partner, went on a date or had a phone call or gave a gift or whatever, like any kind of like marker of like, partnership building, relationshipy stuff, they would put like a marble in that person's jar. And for them, it was more of like a visual sense of knowing kind of how much they had, quote unquote, like invested in each relationship. And this person insisted in their post that it wasn't about like keeping score or like keeping
Right.
tabs, but it was just more of a like having a sense. And like, I think for this person, it was more of like a motivation of like, I want to fill up these jars, as opposed to like, again, like I'm trying to keep these jars totally equal. But like I see like this person, it seems like almost kind of trying to gamify a little bit their process of like investing in these particular relationships. But I also understand how some people would see that and be like, ugh, that looks weird or I don't know. What do y'all think?
I mean, that could become potentially sinister in a way. Not sinister, but just like, I see that I'm clearly more interested in X person, so maybe that means that I'm shouldn't be with Y person or whatever. I don't know. But it is, if you're looking at it from like a relationship anarchy standpoint, it could be kind of keeping you in check just to be like, hey, like I clearly am prioritizing someone over the other and I don't want to be doing that. So let's make a change here. And it's at the very least like a visual representation of something that they can see.
Yeah, I guess I could see it being useful maybe in certain circumstances, but maybe not so much in others. I don't know. What if they like gently place it in the jar? Does that change?
Yeah,
how you feel? If they
very gently.
put some marbles in a jar.
What if they were silk roses instead of marbles?
And the jar fills up a lot faster.
It would just be like a cacophony of silk.
Silk.
That's good. Cacophony of silk.
If I had a fabric store, that's what I'd call it.
Cacophony.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm sorry, the heat is making me
I
delirious.
know, I think
okay.
so. I think so.
Honestly, I don't know what I think about that. It does make me feel a little uncomfortable, and I can't
I get it, I get
can't
it.
quite put my finger on. If that's justified
Why?
or not.
Yeah.
I do think it depends what you're using it for.
Yeah,
how
of
you're
course.
approaching it, though.
Just, you were talking about this app Super Better.
Yes. Okay. So I do want to recommend one app. This will be the only app I think I recommend on this episode. It's called Super Better, and it's there's a web version of it. There's also for iPhone or for Android. There's different versions of this. But Super Better is one of the many gamification apps out there. But the reason why this one stood out to me is, first of all, the woman who designed it has done a bunch of TED Talks, and they were quite compelling. But also, she designed it specifically for accomplishing kind of a larger life goal by breaking it up into smaller things, and also incorporated a lot of other interesting aspects to keep you going. And for her, that was getting over a concussion that she was having trouble recovering from, and sort of taking what she learned from that and then combining it with other things like from positive psychology that we've talked about on this, as well as other tools. And so the way this one works is you have kind of your overarching goal that you're going for. And, you could change this whenever you want. And it could be something very vague. Like that goal could be something like, I want to have happier relationships, right? Or I want to have a job that I love, right? Could be whatever. But then you have what are called quests, which are those are the achievable things. And it's set up so that you do 3 of those each day. So you might have a bunch of quests in your log, but each day you kind of choose, I'm going to do these 3 so that, again, you fill up your progress bar so that you've gotten all 3. And then you're like, okay, I've done the quest section. But then, so that part is very similar to the other gamification apps out there, where it's kind of about putting your goals into this app and then you get experience points and you level up and it, does fireworks and whatever, that. What's interesting about this one is that there's also a section for power-ups. And this one I really like because the power-ups aren't specifically like a goal, but the power-ups are just a good thing you can do to help yourself, right? And this is where it's things like drinking a glass of water, going for a walk around the block, giving yourself a compliment, appreciating your physical body for what it is, regardless of whether you want to improve that or not, still appreciating it as it is right now, or sending a kind note to someone like that. And that those are separate from just these other kind of more tangible goals, and that they're like a power up to help you accomplish that thing. And then there's also a category that's called bad guys. So again, trying to make it like a video game. And the bad guys would be things like a certain type of procrastination. Like, oh, I get distracted by Facebook while I'm trying to get work done, right? And if we put this in terms of relationships, you can put your own things like one of my bad guys would be prioritizing my own lack of self-esteem over being compassionate and caring to a partner, right? Something like that.
Interesting.
And then when you click on that bad guy, you can say like, did I win this battle or did I lose this battle? And then update it on like, how tough is this bad guy for me right now? And then eventually you can even get to the point where you say like, I've vanquished this bad guy. It's not a concern anymore. And it won't, basically deletes it from your list.
Interesting.
But I found that adding that other aspect, and those of course also have their progress bars about like, have you confronted these things each day? And I think that is a really interesting thing, especially when thinking about applying it to more personal development and your relationships. Those idea of like power-ups and overcoming bad guys, and not just about goals, but kind of combining all those together.
Right. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I love any kind of like hacky tip-like, game-like kind of trick that I can apply to my life in order to actually get me to do things that I don't want to do. And so this has been really fascinating and really interesting. I think definitely moving forward, like in my radars, I know you and I, Jase, have done this a little bit already, but I definitely want to apply this in my radars in other relationships. Having that sense when it comes specifically to action of like, how can we gamify this a little bit in order to actually get us to do things? I think that's, at least that's my biggest takeaway from what we've talked about today.
Yeah, I think the thing for me has been, because I've been into gamification for a while, and we'll kind of get into it for a while and then not as much for a while. I do find it to be very helpful, but I think part of it is experimenting to find kind of what works the best for you. And actually for me, this bullet journal has hit sort of a sweet spot of gamification for me in terms of having a checklist I can actually check off every day. Is much more motivating than my previous ways of doing to-do lists, which kind of just feel like I'm doing the same thing every day. I'm not ever accomplishing anything.
Right.
So I would encourage people to experiment a little bit. Try some things. Try some of these apps. See which ones are exciting to you. Which ones are you like, oh man, I want to get that next, cool hat for my character by doing my to-do list items. Or if it's one that has to do with you put money into it that you get to save up, and if you accomplish enough things, then you get to spend that on a new video game or on some new clothes in real life, right? Like there's lots of different ways that you can incentivize these things. So just experiment, see what works for you.
Yay. So if you want to get in touch with us, send us an email to info@multiamory.com or send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can also leave us a voicemail at 678-MULTI-05, or you can leave us a voice message on Facebook. To support our show and join our private Facebook community, go to patreon.com/multiamory. Multiamory is created and produced by Jase Lindgren, Dedeker Winston, and me, Emily Matlack. Our episodes are edited by Mauricio. Our social media wizard is Will McMillan. Our theme song is Forms I Know I Did by Josh and Anand from the Fractal Cave EP. The full transcript is available on this episode's page on multiamory.com. Bye, Cricket.
Hey, this is Dan Savage from the Savage Lovecast and Savage Love. You're listening to a Swing Set podcast at Swing Set FM.